Hello and welcome to another video of Into Design, where we're going to talk about the work we do here at Niels van Roij Design in the studio. Today we're going to talk about Henry II, and in the previous videos we've shared the back of the inside of the car that made the main body. You can see that here actually being made physically in the car. So we shared the CAD model basically, and here you can see it being applied on the car with actually already the first bodywork there on top of the roof. And what we're going to do today is we're going to take a slight step back at when the car first appeared in the workshop with us. So that's what we're going to discuss, and I'd like to invite you again to the screen, because here on the left hand corner in our lookbook, this is a book that we make for every single car, as you might know if you've seen more of our episodes. You see the original car. This is how it was delivered to us, a Rolls-Royce Corniche coupe, and it needed a bit of love. So the first thing we did is we took all the paintwork off. There were some issues with the bodywork, not much rust, but there was quite a considerable amount of tin used, which was very normal in the back in the 80s and in the 70s when these cars were made. But it unfortunately made the paint applied on this car actually rather poor, because from the inside of the bodywork there was some oxygen coming through basically, and it wasn't rusting, but it looked like the car at certain spots was actually rusting. So it needed a full repaint anyway. So what happens right after taking off all the paint? We actually painted the car white, so it's just a body in white to prevent actual rust from starting, because it's a steel car, it's not an aluminium car. And then we started cutting. So you can see this part of the roof, which we decided already, okay, that has to go. We didn't strip the paint off, of course, and we didn't repaint it in white because it wasn't needed. The first cut, and then basically the car ends up as it is on the right-hand image, as what the client called a Rolls-Royce El Camino. So no bodywork whatsoever from the B-pillar backwards, and on the images you can see the car with some very early stages, a rear window as a wooden buck element applied to the side. You see actually here quite an interesting image. The suspension system, the struts, and also the hydraulics, exactly. So the hydraulic system that makes sure it's a very comfortable car. We look at the original side paneling of the Corniche, which actually isn't that refined. It's very rough and squarish, whereas the door panel and the dashboard, for instance, are very pleasant pieces of design. That inside rear panel isn't very pleasant, and we decided that we don't want a front rear passenger compartment and then a rear passenger compartment element. No, we want one big gesture from the B-pillar backward. Everything has to speak the same language. So we decided to, instead of have different sections, redesign everything and make one big gesture. Interesting here as well, you see the original rally instruments as the client had put them in the car, also on top of the dashboard, and the original radio in there, a bit hard to see, but it's a big plastic 80s radio. We completely redid that. We completely redid that center console, hand beaten in aluminium actually. Mm-hmm. And here you see that first cut on the right hand side through that bodywork, and you see some of the tin we spoke about in the previous videos as well. And of course some of the sketches. Let's move on to the next page. Fast forward, of course, the project like this takes about 2.5 to 3 years, so quite a bit of time goes into this. And what we see here is after that buck has left the body, we see the very rough outlines of the roof and the C-pillar. And there's still a lot of work to be done. As you can see here, it's just rough cuts and openings and surfaces not yet resolved. That's all okay. Much like the clay modeling of a car or the CAD modeling of a car, the physical coach building of a car also starts with the large surfaces first, and then we zoom in to the smaller details and end up with the finished car only at the end of all these different stages.
And between this page and previous page, all of the design work has been done.
Yeah.
Which have you seen, like the sketches, the ideation phase, the
Yeah. So we start.
work.
It's an important remark that Tim makes here. I just told you about 2.5, 3 years for a project like this, to compress the full time that a project like this takes. The first thing we do is take the car apart, whilst we actually don't know yet what the final car is going to look like exactly. Because of that, the two ends can be made sort of to run parallel, rather than after the design process, starting with taking the car apart and sawing the stuff off that we don't need, and doing all the construction work. So I invite you to the screen again, a beautiful overview of all the work that was done. And at this stage, the design is not yet 100% complete yet. So of course the main lines are, the boot surfaces, etc., but the smaller details are not yet known. Right, and this is especially color and materials, the boot, the luggage strips in the boot, and these type of things. So that is ongoing. Interesting photos here as well. On the left hand side, the unchanged front end of the car. We didn't do anything to that. And on the right hand side, we've shown you the bug in the previous film. And here you see it actually with the number plate embossed inside. And one of the craftspeople that worked on the car, this is actually the body shaper, the coach builder, working on the boot lid. And here you see that being built up, and again it's done in a very similar fashion, where you see that sort of paper element on top of it. That's just the graphic. So he starts with the large surfaces, stitch them together. You can see that here, right? And you can see that's the surface coming together to another surface. There's still an opening there, all hammered by hand, but all first the main surfaces are made, and then that tinier element, for instance the number plate emboss, is made separately and then integrated into the main surface. It's cut out and integrated. It's not all made at the same time. That's not possible. You can't make surface tension in a big surface and also work on the tiny elements inside it. Metal doesn't allow you to do that. So a beautiful photo of the overview of the main gesture of that car. We replaced the original fuel filler cap that was in the C pillar there to the fender. Here on the sketch on my right hand side, you see how we integrated that with the line nicely running through like that.
So the sketch really becomes reality.
Yeah, exactly. Here you can still see there's a bit of work to be done to the interior of the car. You can see the struts, you can see the wheel well and some of the electronics of the car. There's no interior of anything yet. It's only the outer surface you see here, which is actually very weak at this stage. It had to be, of course, reinforced. The car ended up stiffer than the original OEM Rolls-Royce Corniche coupe. On the right hand side as well, you just see how the body was cut here, the original floor, and here the actual new surface of the boot space. This is a temporary piece of wood, but this would be eventually the final height of the interior.
That's, I believe, one of the first things we decided on, because with the folded bench and
everything had to be reverse engineered to that surface. Yeah. Interesting photo as well. Just to touch on the previous videos, we did discuss the fuel tanks and the electric bike carrying system a few times, and this is where you can see everything coming together, but all of it is not yet finished. So bike carrying system, behind here and behind there is the fuel tank, temporary latch of the what would eventually be, of course, the boot lid opening, but that would end up somewhere over there. This is the subframe that actually makes sure the car is stiff enough, and that takes the fuel tanks left and right, as well as the bike carrying system. And here it is, work in progress. So one tank and the other tank over there, and this would be then in the middle of these two tanks. That's the bike carrying system. So next images, first tryouts. We discussed this in previous videos as well, indeed. So fuel tank left, fuel tank on the right, and here in that big opening will be the bike carrying system. You see sometimes on some of the images these tiny little dots, black dots with white dots in the middle of them, and these are actually for 3D scanning equipment, because then the equipment can actually read the car nicely. So if you see these, that's what's their purpose. And that's a nice overview as well of these dots on the cars, on the car surfaces, and original roof, and from there on we see the new roof. And there we go, the last slide of today. A beautiful overview from metalwork to final metalwork, the first paint of the different parts. And we go from left to right, sanding everything down. Of course, many different stages of sanding, blocking, painting, sanding, blocking, painting, etc., etc. Final undercoats, the different colors. We did a video on that as well. So this is the final paint chosen by the patron of this car. And here you see it for the first time, and that, as a car designer for coach building, is always an exciting moment. The first time all the surfaces are in the correct color. For the first time you actually see the physical car as one sculpture, and that's always quite exciting. Very right? Exciting, yeah. Finally all the, let's say, the weird hard highlights that are in metal, just unpainted metal, are gone, and finally you have that correct surface, and you can see the highlights as you've designed them months ago, years ago in our case, in the studio. You can finally walk around and see how they run, and if everything is culminating the way we intended it to culminate. So, thanks again for tuning in, and we're looking forward to seeing you for the next one. Cheers.